Imagine the screen opening to darkness. A single heartbeat echoes, slow but heavy, like the world is waiting to breathe. Soft flashes of paparazzi lights flicker across the black frame. Shen Yue's silhouette appears. She turns, but her face is hidden. Dylan Wang's shadow follows, cap low, jaw tense, mystery thick in the air. The screen glitches, freezes, distorts. A whisper cuts through the noise. What if everything you believed about them was never real? For the first 40 seconds, the tension climbs like a pressure cooker ready to explode. Rumors drift across the screen as floating text. Caught together? Secret romance. Forbidden love? Each one flickering violently, as if the truth beneath it is trying to break through. The narrator's voice enters, calm but charged with something dangerous. What if the story you've defended, the ship you fought for, the moments you replayed frame by frame, were built on an illusion? What if Dylan Wang and Shen Yue, the pair the world turned into a modern fairy tale, were simply friends? And what if the truth behind that friendship is actually far more shocking, far more complicated, and far more scandalous than any romance rumor you've ever heard? The music swells into a suspenseful drone, the heartbeat quickens, and the whisper returns. Tonight, you're going to see everything differently. The hook snaps shut and the story begins. The screen shows a montage of Meteor Garden clips, laughs, shy gazes, playful teasing. It all feels too natural, too warm, too perfect. Fans across the world convince themselves it couldn't just be acting. The chemistry looked real. The connection looked spontaneous. But the narrator's tone sharpens like a knife cutting through fantasy. Chemistry is easy to misread when you desperately want a love story. And the world didn't just want one, it needed one. Edits flash by, fans screaming at events, trending hashtags flooding timelines, slow-motion clips dissected as if they were evidence in a high-stakes investigation. But behind the scenes, the truth wasn't romantic. It was something else entirely. Something no one expected. The music drops to a low rumble. One night on set, while the cameras were being reset, someone overheard Shen Yue laughing as she said, "If people knew how much he annoys me off camera, they'd stop shipping us immediately." The line is simple, harmless, but it cracks open a door fans never wanted opened. Because the truth wasn't passion. It was comfort. The narrator leans in. What fans mistook for love were the unfiltered moments of two people who clicked instantly, but not the way the world imagined. Long hours on set created bonds no script could fake. They shared snacks. They teased each other. They vented about exhaustion, pressure, and fame. Off camera, they talked like old classmates rather than secret lovers. And yet the world kept zooming in on their smiles like each one carried a hidden confession. And here's where everything twists. The music tightens, suspense humming like static. As their friendship grew, so did the rumors. And as the rumors exploded, their friendship began to fracture. Not because they argued, but because the world refused to let them simply exist without attaching meaning to every interaction. Every glance became proof. Every silence became a cover-up. Every public appearance became a headline waiting to erupt. The narrator pauses, letting the weight sink in. What no one realized was that the pressure wasn't just external, it came from inside the industry too. Suddenly, the lighting shifts darker, more ominous. Behind all the fan edits and shipping wars, there were people benefiting from keeping their names tied together. Producers loved the attention. Publicists loved the engagement. Media outlets loved the clicks. Every rumor kept them trending. Every whisper kept them relevant. And somewhere in that chaos, the truth got lost. Cliffhanger. Because while the world was busy demanding a love story, the reality was slipping quietly in the opposite direction. We see a clip of Dylan looking unusually serious in an interview, answering a question about relationships with a subtle hint of tension in his eyes. Another clip of Shen Yue smiling politely, but her fingers tugging nervously at her sleeve betrays something heavier. What looked like shyness on camera was actually exhaustion. What looked like secrecy was self-protection. The narrator's voice softens but remains intense. They weren't hiding a romance. They were shielding their friendship from being destroyed by speculation. Imagine being unable to stand next to your friend without fans creating theories. Imagine laughing together and worrying how it would be twisted. Imagine feeling pressure to act distant just to stop the storm. That's what really happened. Not scandal, not forbidden love. Just two people trying to hold onto something real in a world that kept rewriting their story for them. But here comes the scandalous twist, subtle, unexpected. At one point, they considered addressing the rumors directly. Not to deny love, but to protect each other from being pulled deeper into the feeding frenzy. But just as they were preparing to speak, they were advised to stay silent. Because silence, they were told, keeps people talking. The background music turned sharp, cutting. In other words, the illusion was more valuable than the truth. The narrator lets the line hang in the air. And so they began to drift, not from conflict, not from jealousy, but from necessity. Distance became their way of surviving the noise. Camera cuts to empty chairs on a quiet set. A symbolic void. But friendship, real friendship, doesn't need proximity to remain powerful. And despite everything, they never turned against each other. Instead, they protected each other by staying away from the spotlight's hunger for more. A bittersweet sigh weaves through the music. And maybe that's what fans never understood. Sometimes the strongest bond isn't romantic. Sometimes the most meaningful connection is the one people will never fully see. The outro begins slow, cinematic, rising with emotion. So, what if Dylan Wang and Shen Yue were always just friends? What if the bond the world tried to twist into love was actually something purer, something quieter, something far harder to break? The truth doesn't destroy the fantasy. It simply reshapes it. And maybe the real story, the one that changes everything, isn't the romance that never happened but the friendship that did. The music fades into a soft heartbeat. Because in the end, legends come and go, but the truth, once revealed, never leaves.